All right, welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. Just getting started. Oh, hope everybody's doing well. Crash, what's going on, man? How are you? Same. I'm ready. I think 49 is a great number. I think it's awesome. Yep. Yeah, I agree. I'm right there with you. I I mentioned it in my video. I think you kind of mentioned the same thing. Like you and I were obviously very excited about Node Wars. I'm sure we'll talk about Node Wars quite a bit and go through that video as well. But it kind of got me thinking, man, what else are we looking forward to? What are we waiting for? And yeah, that's gonna be fun to talk about too, because like you said, there's so much to this game. Um, there's so many different systems that players could potentially spend the next 5 to 10 years engaging in. It's pretty cool. Holy cow. I'm looking forward to Guild Wars. And I know we just got into Node Wars, but there's a difference between the two, and I would like to see the differences between them. And so, um, that might be a slight cop out, but yeah, it's just I've now seen what they've done for Node Wars. I know how it's going to impact Node Wars. Now I want to know what happens when a guild wins, what happens when a guild loses. I want to know those outcomes as well. Yep.
What if you share a note? I don't know. I have a lot of questions, but yeah, yeah. I'll. How you doing, Tatama? Welcome on in. Oh, here's a good question. On the wiki, how do you plan on keeping wars fresh long term? Typically, in other games, wars become one-dimensional in terms of strategy. Will Intrepid be looking at map changes every few years? Or will you give guild slash node mayors the ability to customize the layout or objectives of the battlefield? And the answer was our guild wars have objective based gameplay that spawn in the world based on several different factors and predicates that might exist. Some of those predicates might be where is your guild a patron guild of? Does your guild have a guild hall? What node is your guild leader and or officers a citizen of? What
Mm-hmm.
was your last completed raid boss? All of those can serve as predicates to then spawn certain objectives within the world that players have to either engage with in a number of different manners. Either they can kill objectives, they can control objectives, they can capture and move objectives, they could be a caravan summons. that need to take supplies from those objectives. The idea is to incorporate all of these other ancillary systems that exist within the game in some way, shape, or form, tie it to the Guild War because we've created those systems for a reason. We want players to engage with those systems. So why not hook those systems into the Guild War format? And I think that creates a very dynamic setting where it is not just about killing and logging out, but rather strategy in both your resource placement, how you respond, when you respond, the composition of your raid slash group teams, the type of thing, those type of things play a role now in the outcome of those guild wars. And I think they keep it fresh because it'll be different per war.
Yes. Yeah, I I really like that answer from Steven, like most answers that he gives. I've played games in the past where sometimes there's no decided outcome for a war, and it's just both sides are stubborn, right? They're going to fight, they're going to keep fighting, and there's no decided outcome, and so it gets kind of stale. It's like, okay, yeah, we're at war with them. We don't fight them right now though because we're bored. Like we've fought them for like the last 2 months. We don't want to fight them anymore. And so having decided outcomes like gives you a build up, right? It gives you a build up for, okay, we're going to war with these guys. We need to win these objectives. Like imagine if instead of like 17 games in the NFL season, it was just one really long football game. Like it just wouldn't be the same, right? Of having a week's worth of buildup. Like, oh my God, the team lost this week. They're 1-2. Are they really bad this year? Instead of having that entire buildup and discussion, it's just drawn out and kind of boring.
Yeah, I completely agree. Something I would like for them to do like capture points, like which is something I'm sure they have planned, but you ever play like a battleground and it's capture the flag, or you need more people on this objective than they have, like multiple, like scattered throughout the world. Like I don't need each flag on 3 different continents, so it's just super inconvenient. But your guild be able to hold down 3 different POIs, especially one where a world boss might spawn and interrupt the fight. It makes me curious on how and if they're going to incorporate PVX into it the way they did so with the Node War.
Yeah.
There's a lot of potential there because Guild Wars are going to be a lot more. That's something I think we should talk about is Guild Wars will be a lot more coordinated than a Node War. A Node War, anybody can just jump in and join, right? You want to take part in it because you're a citizen of that node. You have a stake in that war. Like you're going to be losing XP if you don't help your team win.
Yep.
And everybody has a different role they can play, whether it's the strict PvP or just going through the back lines, harvesting rubies like we saw with this previous week's stream. I think something really important is that a guild is always going to be on comms. They're communicating, they're strategizing. Whereas the Node War, that could be a bunch of randoms. A group of 3 on comms, a group of 12, the mayor and his 10. You know, it's just chaos, but everyone knows what the objective is. Whereas a guild war, you got strats, you got formations, you got builds, you got comps. You know, it's gonna be a whole different beast. Like and so I think that's gonna be the fundamental difference with guild wars and that how it is approached.
But yeah, and I mean, we're obviously not developers either, Nyce. Like, and neither one of us are going to claim to be, right? Like, I'm definitely not. I don't know what you would say about that, but
oh no, I made a whole weapon skill tree. Like,
oh no, shit, okay.
I'm qualified now.
Okay, you're qualified. Okay, so hear me out on this. You'll probably agree since you're now head developer of the conversation. You want to make sure, like, if you were developing guild wars and node wars, you'd want them to stand out and be separate. You'd want to make sure that they had their own objectives, they had their own victory rewards, they had their own loser penalties. You want them to make sure that they're not going into the same bucket, because if they go into the same bucket, then people aren't going to get as much enjoyment out of it. It's going to end up being the exact same thing. And so yeah, for all the reasons you mentioned, as well as that, I think that's why they're going to stand out and be different. I think it's different groups of people, differing varying differences of communication abilities, and for that you have the chance to do something a little bit cooler, I guess.
Yes. Before we move on to another thing we'd like to see, and we may pull a choice from you guys in chat. So if you're in chat and you haven't already, go ahead and comment what you still want to see before launch or before Alpha 2. Make sure you specify which. It's not necessary, but it'll help. Let's catch up with the voices of Verra, Warrior, Tatamo. Everybody, welcome on in. Appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for the follows, likes,
Yes,
all that
thank
good
you guys
stuff. NW says, I want to see how the augments work with different weapons slash armor combos. Like, can my
Man.
necromancer be on the front line with a big weapon and plate armor, fighting alongside my summons and still be viable? That we're gonna circle back to this one after we read the rest of these
Yeah.
the rest of the voices, because that's a big one. I think that's the one I'd like to go into next. That's a big statement.
I was
Augments, augments, augments.
I was just gonna say, could you time that guy out for like 10 minutes for taking one of my most important ones just because I'm jealous that he said it now? Could you do that?
Yeah, I can't believe you let him beat you to that, honestly.
I was doing a build up. Like I was like, okay, we're gonna do this, and then my number one will be towards the end of the show. But no, I'm completely joking, guys. I agree. Augments are they're the most important one in my opinion. Seeing how
Yes.
things change, you are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So
Indeed. Rag and Rock says it was a good showing, but the Zerg v Zerg mechanics need work. The wall was the only real tactical relevant Zerg v Zerg ability I saw on display. Let me think about that. I guess so. You got that one AoE with the cleric. No, I get that. I get that. There's not too many. I mean,
yeah.
I guess that's what the tank is there for, though, right? And then Bard, I'm sure, is gonna fill in that gap.
So
Um,
So Phantom just subscribed and go branching off of the same conversation talking about tactical uses of tanks. I listened to the Theory Forges podcast that happened 2 days ago, and he was talking about his cleric and went into detail talking about how him and Chibi they were both clerics, but they ran very functionally different clerics. And like he was more of like a frontline battle mage, whereas Chibi, I'm pretty sure, was more of a healer. I could have that second part wrong, but I do think it's interesting that at level 15, which is where they were all at level 15, they had so many different variables that they were able to change the functionality of their builds that much. I like, I mean, think about your level like 20 in ESO, right? Nice. Like, do you think, I don't know. I thought about that and I was like, man, that is really cool that you had that much of a difference in build archetype that early into testing.
Yeah, you don't really get that with a lot of games. You gotta you're able to sometimes preview it. Like you scroll down like
Yeah.
level 50 in that skill tree, and you're like, oh, when I get that that's gonna be
There's the
really
cool
good, but you
shit.
can't use it right now. But because you're low level, which is fine. You know, games need progression, but it's cool to at least let players dip their toes in it, so to speak. Like at least get a taste. Like you don't got the best shield wall or the best bear that protects your allies as a
Yeah.
tank at level 15, but they give you a little something that helps in that. They give you the chain pull. They give you the Aegis ability that lets you like kind of absorb some incoming damage. It's probably not as good as like a dome barrier or something like that, but it lets you diversify. And also at level 15 for the tank, you get like 2 damaging abilities. So if you ever wanted to spec into a damage tank, you know, it gives you a little taste of that.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really important indeed. Well
Yep.
said, yeah.
Yeah, so like I do agree. Like when I went and watched the live stream, I was like, okay, first of all, most of the games I play, tanks don't get cool utility skills like a big freaking wall for their group. That was already awesome. I was like, you gave them one thing. That's one thing more than most games I've seen. So I came away impressed with that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You want to see more utility abilities. You absolutely want to see tanks having more effective abilities as we go down the road. And I think it's great to see that at so early in the process, they already have something that's so damn effective to a point to that they had to nerf it before Alpha 2. So
I got a hot take.
Let's hear it.
The voices of Verra are the best, worst community ever. I said it. You know why?
What about the worst?
Because the worst, like every comment, like that was 1 or 2 comments, right?
Yeah.
Every time one of you guys are so awesome. You guys provide so many tangents, no matter what the plan is. Like I said, hey, I'm going to catch up with the voices of Verra. We're going to speed through some comments. Else, we just read 2 comments from chat.
I know.
And look, these guys are so awesome. They got us like a whole, like they're bringing up stuff that could be a whole stream idea by itself. So thank you guys. I meant that as a joke, by the way. You guys are freaking awesome. Like that's something I will rant about for about a good 30 minutes. Like it's awesome. Like the Zerg v Zerg comment, the augments comment, you know, like this.
Yeah,
You guys are freaking awesome. I'm gonna get through the rest of these before we finish the conversation. Wiz says, when it comes to guild wars, are you at war with that guild's alliances too? That is a good question.
that is a good
Can you
question.
declare war on more than one guild? So I'll
Let
be
me scroll
honest.
through it. I'm not sure.
Go ahead and start looking that up. I'm curious about that. I hope not, to be honest. I hope not. But then again, what would be the point of alliances, right? That is a great question. Because if you're an ally, you inherit beef. You know, it don't always work out like that in the real world. But when you're an ally, that's you saying, "Hey, I got your back if something goes down." So, and that would bring a con to alliances. Like, it's not fair to probably just get only the pros of being in an alliance with somebody, right? Like, okay, if Else is a horrible person, like it leaks out to the Ashes of Creation community that he kicks puppies on the weekend, right? This video
Yeah.
leaks of Else just stomping a puppy out, and then he joins the Voices of Air podcast. Right now, it's beneficial because I get to have Else with this podcast. We're having a good talk. But if that video of Else, once again, everybody, Else kicking puppies, if that leaks, I should have to reap the cons. It's like, oh, we're gonna get him canceled because hey, Nyce, I can't believe you do a weekly stream with someone that kicks puppies all day. Maybe there should be a downside there, right?
Okay.
Else kicks puppies.
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So just so we're clear, I already threatened to like kick or mute somebody jokingly. You've already said that they're the worst best group, and now I kick puppies. So episode 49 is pretty interesting, guys. I just want to clear my name here, guys. Around this time last year, I posted pictures of me saving squirrels. Okay, so if anybody in this duo podcast is kicking puppies, it's probably the accuser and not the accused. So I'm just saying.
I plead the fifth.
Hypothetically, of course.
Let's see. Copium Clinic says, good point. Guild Wars will be more controlled. Ragnarok says, there will likely be a node-based Discord to coordinate plebs, just like factions in Albion. Very true. I really think these server-specific Discords are going to be a really big deal, man. I really do. Warrior says augments as well. HD says, I want to see romanceable companions so I can ERP. That's his priority. And W with the sad face. Control says, before launch, naval. Oh yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. We gotta circle back to that one too. Naval. I think that was on my list too. Lots I'd like to know, but specifically, I'd like to see how/if naval gameplay will impact node sieges for coastal or island nodes. Phantom says, imagine possibilities, skill choices matter. Add a real armor system, weapon skill trees, secondary classes, enchants, and holy shit, dude. You know I'm a huge advocate for build diversity, and
absolutely,
man, I want my choices to matter. Like I don't want like how you saying, when Phantom was a battle cleric, if he wants to be like a cleric fighter and he's got all this, but Chibi specs into like AoE hots and heals, like there should be two different ways to play cleric. There shouldn't be a one size fits all, like and my hope was that we would get that through the 64 archetype system. But what if that's just one piece of the pie? You got your what weapons did you choose? How'd you build out that weapon skill tree? What is your secondary archetype? What active skills do you have? What religious augment did you do? Is your racial choice playing a role in it? There's so much potential for build diversity in Ashes.
Yeah, I think I think that's exactly how it's working too. By the way, like we've seen it with the wand layout. We've seen it with like them discussing what the augments will be and everything. And it's just like you have these tweaks. I think I could get it wrong, but I'm pretty sure, just going back to what Phantom said, I think he said he wore like more constitution based tankier gear. And so choices between different gear, choices between different weapons, and then the skill layout trees within those weapons, and then the augments within your archetype. It's like all these things add up to where you could have a bunch of different build diversity among just one archetype and make all sorts of interesting combinations for yourself.
Nice. I forgot to say, you just reminded me. I forgot to say like armor types being waiting to that medium, light armor, heavy armor. Like, man. Crash says, why is Else always your example for something terrible? You know what? You're right. I'm gonna start using Phantom X. I need to evenly split that out there. NW says, if Node Wars are open world, what's to stop some random third party player from running in to get killed in the chaos to make everyone corrupted? So you have settings that should prevent that, like your AoEs don't target anyone that's not flagged for PvP,
Yep.
uh, and stuff like that. So I think that has been accounted for.
So nice.
Was
Oh,
go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm looking at the Wikipedia right now when we were talking about
Mhm.
guild wars and alliances
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
allies. You can have alliances among guilds. I'm sure you remember this. You can have up to a maximum of 4 guilds allied, but there's nothing in here that says anything involved with guild wars. It does say that Ashes of Creation may have specific content that revolves around alliances. So maybe further on down the road, it says progression pathways, guilds, and then node alliances. So, yeah, I was curious about that as well. If like are allies going to be able to participate in guild wars? Right now, I can't see anything that says that that exists. So it'll be interesting to see if that will come up later.
Yeah. You know what you just made me think of? What if this weird scenario occurs where me and you have a mutual ally, but we're not directly allies?
Oh,
I wonder if that
sure.
makes the system too complicated. Yeah, like
Yeah,
we're both friends. I mean, we're enemies, but we have a mutual friend
sure.
that's both on our ally list. That's
Yeah.
that'll be
So
a fun one for the devs to tackle.
so like hypothetically, like Phantom X and I kick puppies, and
Yeah,
you know that Phantom doesn't, or you know that I do, so you're not allied with me, but you don't know about
yeah,
Phantom X kicking puppies, so you're allied with him, hypothetically.
yeah.
So
Speaking of which, Wisp says no one else is a puppy kicking pirate. Tatamo says, "Who is
hilarious.
else? I only see no one now." Hey, let's go! Shout out to the rebrand. Oh man, I just realized. Yeah, no one. Make
Yeah,
sure if you guys do have trouble finding Elsa's channel, obviously make sure you subscribe so that won't be an issue. But his name on YouTube is no one, no number one. Phantom X says, and I'm almost done here, else I think we just got a couple. No wars have different war declarations that have different rules. Could guild wars have different war declarations that could or could not involve allies? I was thinking about that,
I hope so.
and I hope so. I hope they don't try to make it too intricate. I would like to leave most of that for the node wars. I think guild wars having varying objectives will be enough. I don't need to see a different guild war type, but I would like to see different variable objectives. So we're not every time you
Yes,
go to war with someone, you're not meeting up at the same POI, capturing the same flag, returning in the same thing. So I would like that. Of course, I wouldn't be opposed to it having intricate different kinds of declarations, but I don't think they would need it per se, if that makes
sure.
sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Um
I think the only big difference is if that specific guild has a guild hall, then you want to up the ante if the guild hall's at risk, right? So,
yeah, true.
but yeah,
Oh
I
yeah,
agree.
because what if it takes place at like around their guild hall, or what if you have guild wars for the right to a guild hall, or there's so much they
Yeah,
could do with it to separate it from node wars. Yeah. Tatamo says we mean my friend so hard in Arcade for doing animal husbandry, but then he finally started making bank and was the richest among us. Wow, yeah, dude, I think that's the market. I think it's gonna be the most fun and rewarding profession. They talked about it before,
absolutely.
but they're worried about it being the most like it's too intricate and like too fun and detailed compared to other professions where it's like, oh, you're a blacksmith, you're gonna press this button and now that's gonna refine this ore, whereas animal husbandry has so much depth to it, it's kind of not fair. So they said that's actually a worry among their design team. It's like it's good that we have this cool animal husbandry system, that we're using this real world stuff, but what about the guy that chose lumberjacking or carpentry? Are we
Yeah,
doing in depth for them? That's a
yeah. What
good
about
question.
me? That's because that's exactly what I'm going to choose, something boring like that for sure. I
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I agree. Animal husbandry is going to be crazy because what I mean, everybody wants their character to look good. So whether it's what your character looks like or it's what your mount looks like, that's going to be the big deal. And so yeah, whoever makes the coolest or the fastest mounts or whatever, like that'll be high demand.
Yes, chat is killing it. So we got another fire one from Guts Gore. He says, before launch, I really want to see the character creator pump out a 3D. Okay, I'll admit I didn't know where he was going with this. I just read character creator. So let me finish this comment. He said, before launch, I really want to see the character creator pump out a 3D printable file for use. I did not know that's what he was gonna say. LOL, not gonna happen. Need to think a minute on systems I really want. I like that. But yes, character creator is something. I mean, I think we have to see it right before Alpha 2. They said we're going to get it before Alpha 2. It's interesting that the PI haven't had their hands on it, but they're probably still doing their last little touches. And there's probably a race they're finishing up, and they just want to roll it all out at one time. User numero uno says, I wish they pay attention to medium armors. I feel like every MMO looks at light and heavy armors when it comes to balancing, but forgets about medium armor and it becomes kind of useless. Good take, good take. High five for rebrands from Copium Clinic, aka Dr. Burns, aka Ashes of Relation. Is there going to be bombers, says Greatness? Dude, I hope so. I think every MMO needs a way to make a Zerg nervous. I think you need to be able to punish. That was one of my AMA questions. I think you need a way to punish people from stacking close to each other. Being able to wipe a Zerg or like in one like some AoE skill, or you know where I'm going with this with ESO else, like some skill that is multiplicative of the amount of people that it hits. So that way, if you're able to time it right or use it and it can have a long cooldown, but if it hits, it does X amount of damage. It does 200 damage. And then this is multiplied a 50% increase per target that gets hit in that explosion. I think it'll be really good for TTK. It'll be good for groups. It'll be good for sieges. I just think it's a good thing to have in an MMO. And obviously, maybe have a drawback with that. Maybe you got to be really squishy, or have some build sacrifice to accomplish that. Hopefully, but yeah. So the first one that we need to catch up on, I think we got character creator on list, but augments. So let's talk about augments. And chat, if you're just now getting in, what we are doing is what remains to be seen with Ashes of Creation, whether that be leading up to Alpha 2 or just before launch. What are you looking forward to the most?
The
And
most
so I'm gonna
exciting.
pull most exciting. Like, what is your top two, especially? I think we're trying to get two from each of you guys. And so I'm going to go ahead and type in augments. And this is a big one. I wouldn't say controversial, but this is one I think, chat, that we could just go all over the place with. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't know where my expectations are with augments. And let me explain. There's been times, and this is one of the biggest things that drew me to this game, is the 64 archetype system, 64 class system, and how those classes can be different from each other. And then the augment system, how mages blink. If I chose rogue secondary, it'll make that blink a dash. Or if I'm a fighter and I got that cyclone AoE spin to win, if I chose mage as my secondary as a lightning or fire augment from that school of elements or whatever, that school of magic, and all that sounds cool. And then they talked about things being like completely transformative. And there's been so much. And then we've also heard Steven say, like, oh, they're just templates, it just probably changes the damage type. I feel like we've been given information from all over the place. Like, it's been somewhat consistent, but I don't know whether to think it's going to be groundbreaking or if it's just going to be like a small template. I know they've said it's going to be some that are transformative, some are just a little bit like this, but is each skill going to be augmented? Like, if I choose mage as my secondary, does every active skill get augmented? And before I get your thoughts on this, before we do a deep dive of augments, I'd like to say this: the way I predict it, or the way I would do it, because you guys know I'm a professional combat designer for Ashes of Creation. If you haven't seen my weapon skill tree video and stuff like that, I'm obviously qualified to do this for a living. But here's what I would do, being a game developer and all. The way I would do it is each class, let's say, has 20 to 30 active skills. Let's just say 30. So each of these 8 archetypes have 30 active skills. The way I would do it, I would divide those 30 active skills among each of the 8 secondary archetypes. Or rather, in this case, I think it'll be, if my math is correct, 7 other archetypes, right? So you just do 7 over 30. So let me explain it this way. I have a fighter. I have a spin to win ability. The mage has a secondary augment. If I go mage secondary, when I choose my secondary class in Ashes of Creation, once I get level 25, I'm going to hover over mage, and over mage, it's going to say, like, choosing mage secondary gives you lightning effect to your cyclone ability. Your gap closer now closes a little bit quicker and does a lightning AoE damage upon impact. Now it does damage to people in the area instead of just a single target gap close that it was as a pure fighter. Thank you so much for the follow, Heat. Now, if you and then it'll probably be like 2 per, right? So then also it'll augment this other ability. Then if I go cleric as my secondary, I hover over cleric, let's say fighter cleric, and then I hover over that class. Now I realize that that bleed ability, you know, the one you strike damage, and if they move, it does a bleed damage over time. I now heal every time that enemy uses blood. It now says siphons the blood from enemies, blah blah blah. Maybe what's I'm trying to think of all the fighter skills as I'm talking, but that execute, you heal for that damage that you do, right? It doesn't, because remember, a secondary archetype doesn't just give you new skills, it augments the skills that the class or the archetype rather already has. And we could keep going with examples. If I did fighter tank, my gap closer, once I gap close on someone and it connects, I now have 5 seconds of 50% increased mitigation. Or
Yeah.
when I gap close, or when I do a cyclone, not only am I doing an AoE damage cyclone, allies that are within 5 meters of me when I do the cyclone, they now have increased resistances for 5 seconds afterwards. So that's me being a support tank to my allies. And of course, it's making me tankier. That's how I would do augments. And then you go down the list. That to me is the best way to do the augment system. It's how I would do the augment system personally.
Yeah. No, it's almost, I feel like we've talked about this before, but no, I completely agree with you. And like rogue would provide critical damage to abilities. It would augment by being bursty, in my opinion. I think you could do stuff that way. I've talked about this in the past, and my opinion has changed. And so it's not that I've waffled or anything like that. It's that now that we've seen more with the wand layout, now that we've seen more with the initial archetype trees and everything, I was really concerned that these augments had to be transformative, right? Like if you want 64 different classes, you're going to have them transform in a way to where it feels like 64 different classes. And now I'm starting to see the overall vision of like, yeah, these are going to be slight adjustments. They're going to tweak these specific skills. It's the other things that are being incorporated through the archetype trees that are really going to make like choose how your specific class is going to play. And yeah, I wouldn't have found myself saying this like 8 months ago. And I agree with you. Like just those slight tweaks, like just that's how you augment things around the skills and abilities. That combined with your weapon layout, combined with everything else we've talked about, is going to create so much build diversity. I'm sure you'll agree with me on this, but it was the coolest thing about ESO, in my opinion, for the longest time, is you had so many different classes. And so if you got bored with one class, you could hop on another. If you got bored with one class, you could hop on another. Some of that went away with the hybridization a little bit, in my opinion, but it's still the same. Like you could still bounce from class to class and play so many different build styles. And it's really cool about the build diversity. The first time you and I played New World, it was like, okay, we don't have any classes. Like we have weapons, but we don't have classes. And this feels a little weird. Like everybody's running the same stuff because this is what's best. Yeah. And then they came out with artifacts, and artifacts changed build diversity quite a bit. And so it's just impact of like the class feel is very important to me. Like how classes feel and look, like they got to look cool. They got to feel unique. Yeah. And then you have to have the ability to play a bunch of different things. And those are the two things that are really big. And I do think they're going to hit it out of the park in this regard with what we've seen so far. It just isn't the way I expected it. So.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset it doesn't need to be. So I'm kind of in the middle of this. I don't think the secondary class system needs to be game defining. I think a lot more people as time goes on isn't expecting it to be like, they don't think it's really going to feel like another 64 classes. It's going to be archetype with a little flavor of it. But I just hope that they do enough to where it's somewhat transformative. I just hope that a fighter cleric feels different than a fighter rogue. Like I hope there is enough and it's not bare minimal. I just hope it has meaning and not just like I chose this one because I had a cool name and then I still look like I don't want my fighter rogue. I don't want to duel with my pure fighter against a fighter rogue and it really looks like we're the same thing or the same build. But as we mentioned and as you just mentioned, there's so many ways to customize a build in Ashes of Creation.
Yes.
And I'm not gonna go through the list again, but there's so many layers. I think that's the best word to use. There's so many layers, dude. Like on how two people essentially shouldn't really be the same. Like you should never run into somebody with your exact same composition. How you built your character, which is not something you can say for a lot of games. It's really not. I know YouTube builds and metas are a thing, but in Ashes of Creation, the way it's laid out, you have a lot of choice. Um, Control says, didn't they mention how many skills were meant to be augmented from each archetype? I don't think so. If they did, we'll probably about to read it here. How many classes do you think they will have ready for Alpha 2 launch? They actually just answered that in our AMA. It is going to be 6. The only thing that will be missing from Alpha 2's launch is the Summoner and the Rogue, which we'll get in their first patch. They should be coming. But yeah, Summoner and Rogue will be missing at the launch of Alpha 2. We'll have everything else, that being Fighter, Mage, Cleric, Bard, Ranger. Who did I forget just now? Tank. So here on the wiki it says there are 32 augment skills. I think this is the question that was asked during the Envious Q&A, if I remember correctly. There are 32 augment schools, not including racial, social, religious augments, meaning a total of 8960 different variations of spells. How do you guys plan on tackling that, or has the augment system for the classes changed since? Steven's answer was, it has not changed, and the intent is for us to design relatively templatable effects conferred by each school of augmentation. And those effects will have a lot of shared benefits that get conferred to a particular ability when the augment gets applied. So, and this is what I was talking about earlier, where it's like they went from saying huge game changing transformative augments to it's just templates.
Yep.
And who knows how that could be. Like if you are a fighter rogue and that secondary that augment that you now have access to is shadow magic or assassination, and so it adds a little bit more crit chance to stuff, like that's a pretty game changing thing that will make that fighter rogue feel different from a pure fighter that you used to have. So it could be enough. It just remains to be seen, right? It's just we got to get our hands on it, and it's kind of hard to tell at this stage. What else did you want to discuss with augments?
No, I agree with what you're saying. I agree with that line of thought, and I do think templates are all they need with what we know that they're doing with everything else. I think it's gonna be fine. Like that, my biggest question's been answered by seeing other things, other systems. So yeah, I'm really excited for those little adjustments and everything, because yeah, I want classes to feel unique, and you know we're seeing that. We're seeing the big tank changes that we saw during the node war. Like we're seeing everything come together, and it's like, okay, these are all looking really cool.
Yeah, I think they've done a good job, and I don't think that's something anybody could question. Like, no archetype, I don't think they'll ever have problems making the archetypes feel different from each other. It's just if they can get the classes different from each other. And going on in a wiki, it says here, secondary class augments may be applied to any skill, but it is possible that some specific augments may be locked to specific abilities, kind of like the example I just gave. And then the other reference I was making, I was referencing earlier. Augments can affect a multitude of things and can, in some cases, create entirely new skills.
Yeah.
Like that. See, you see the I don't want to use the word inconsistency, but it's because they're saying it's both, right? It's like in some cases it's going to be this, some cases it's going to be that, but it makes it hard for me personally to set my expectations where they're kind of all over the board with it. Like right here, it says drastically change the ability itself, change the damage type and value, change the cooldown period, change the distance of the skill, change the effect from range to melee ability. Like that's pretty transformative. Like that's a big deal. That's not just like a little, I don't know. So there's really, yeah, Phantom says got to have all the classes before you have the secondaries. And so I pitched this question to you, chat. Do you think we see augments at the launch of Alpha 2?
No.
And if not, because I imagine most of you will say no, how long until we see augments? I think most people are gonna say no. And I wouldn't even imagine we get augments until they finish with the summoner and the rogue, because I feel like you want to make sure you got that baseline coding. You want to make sure you got all the archetypes in the game before you
Yep.
start letting people do a mix of the two.
I
So
would
I imagine this is one of those systems that we're pretty far out from.
I'm going like this is going to be like pulling information out of my ass for no reason at all. Because I kick puppies. So what I will say is I think you already said like that they plan on during the first adjustment iteration of the new patch for Alpha 2, they're going to come out with the next two archetypes. I think shortly after the archetypes are introduced, we will see the augment system. And so I would say that, you know, I don't know for sure, but let's say like Q3 we get Alpha 2, Q4 at some point we will get the two remaining archetypes, and then I will say Q1 of next year we'll get augments. That's going to be my guess.
Okay. So Heat Crusher, thank you for subscribing, my friend. Thank you. Thank you so much. Means a lot. So let's talk about the next thing that chat brought up. I know the character creator was brought up, but I think naval might have been brought up first. But either way, let's tackle naval first. So this is one of mine. I really want to see naval. I could see that. Thank you so much. I could really see that being one of our, if it's done right, like in game loops, one of our core gameplay loops. We all know, or most of you should know, that most of the map, if I remember correctly, is water. It is the open seas, and on these open seas, it will be corruption-free PvP. Think about how we just saw the Node War. That was objective-based PvP, right? You didn't get corruption for killing them, like because it was sanctioned PvP. I think that's the better word I'd like to use going forward is sanctioned PvP, right? Uh, so you had this PvP going on, and it was okay. You didn't receive no corruption penalties. Well, the open sea is going to be that. The whole sea, all that content out there is just going to be fair game. It's going to be a high risk, high reward area. In fact, it's probably going to be the epitome of, or like, it's going to be risk versus reward personified, because I think they said they want like the best treasures and stuff like that on the open seas. And I never got a chance to play Arcade is naval content, but everyone unanimously say they did it the best. Um, so I'm personally looking forward to naval content. I'm personally looking forward to naval content. I can't wait to see what they do with it. We have seen Ravs, which is, you know, it's the baby steps, but in that, I think we saw a lot of potential, and I think they're further along than what they're ready to show. Like, it's not show ready, but the
Yeah.
fact that they got that water mechanics, the fact that they got the currents lets me know that they probably got the wave system, which is probably going to be essentially the same thing for the open sea. They probably got a sail system. I don't know, the water mechanics, the water physics look good. And else, you know, I love complimenting the water. I would do a whole video just on the water that I've seen in Verra. It looks really good. Looks really good.
Yeah.
What are your expectations for naval content?
I'm so excited, man. Like I haven't played a naval game. I've thought about getting into, you know, when we had DA on and he was talking about how Arcage's naval was really fun, and a few other friends in my Discord. What's that big? Can't remember the name of the game, but basically I've been thinking about getting into a naval game just so I could
Sea of
see if
Thieves, Skull and
Sea of
Bones.
Thieves. Yes, I've been thinking about playing Sea of Thieves just to see if I'd actually like it. You know what I mean? Because I'm
Yeah.
so excited about this game's naval, but I haven't really played. I haven't really played any naval, so
Yeah.
it's like, well, maybe I won't like it. Maybe it'll be boring. But yeah,
Mhm.
I I'm really excited to see it. I like you said, I'm sure in the background they're developing and everything, and it'll probably be an Alpha 2 reveal, you know, later next year and everything. But yeah, I'm gonna test the shit out of that. It's gonna be so much fun.
Nice. How old is this video I'm viewing right now? Okay, this is them in 2017 with a Snapchat leak. Anyways, it's on the naval content page. But yeah, I think naval is a good one. Won't spend too much. We talk about the naval stuff a lot here. But yeah, I think that's something we're all looking forward to. Before we move on to the character creator, I'd like to once again thank you all for being here. We literally can't do this without the voices of Verra, so you guys literally carry us in content and chat. If you guys haven't, make sure you're subscribed to No One on YouTube. Make sure you follow him on Twitch. No matter which one of us you watch, or if you jump from stream to stream, if you just go to the Ashes of Creation category, you'll find him if that's the easiest way for you to do so. We are on both platforms. Don't tell no one I said that out loud. If you want to just, no matter where you follow, it just helps us out. If you leave
Yeah.
a follow, like, subscribe on whichever platform, really means a lot for you. Yes, AC, thank you so much for being here. Yes, they are very amazing. So, Phantom had a great, little small tangent here. He says, corruption free, as far as those death penalties during the Node War, corruption free, but what about death penalties? So I'm a firm belief that anytime you die in Ashes of Creation, there should be death penalties. I think that's how it is already still, but I think death penalty should always be a thing unless it's like a instant arena kind of thing. But anytime you die in the open world of Verra, I think there should be a death penalty.
Yeah. Yeah, I go back and forth on it. Like I think there should be okay, so here are my two varying viewpoints, right? And I don't think you get death penalties for these events, right? Like Node Wars and everything, or at least you're not supposed to. I think they did, but you're not supposed to.
You do. You don't get corruption. You get death penalties. So like a little degradation of your armor, and you know.
I feel like I feel like my only concern about death penalties is if they're a little bit too harsh. It doesn't promote people participating in combat so much as it promotes them running in a large group together. And so I'm not against it. I'm with you. Like there should be penalties and everything. It would stop, bullheaded people like me from jumping into a 15-man all the time to try and do stuff, because then I would be penalized for just being stubborn. I totally agree that it would stop that, but yeah, like tweaking that number to get it right. So it's not, so you get something, but it's not too punishing for participating in like different systems, I think is a good way to attempt to balance it.
Very well said. I completely agree. And I just I promise you I didn't remember this until as you were talking, but that was like the point of one of my AMA questions that I asked Steven. Pretty much do you feel like that would lead to zerging? Like do you feel uh death penalty? I forgot how I worded the question, but do you feel like things like death penalties and stuff like that and harsh penalties will lead to zerging? And his answer was like, the rewards are, you can zerg all you want, but there's only a set amount of rewards. The rewards are finite, which is true. But yeah, I'm with you. Like if it's too harsh, if you don't get it right, people they're not gonna want to participate in these systems. I feel like Node War death penalty or any, I will say this right now. Here's my take. Any purple death, that means you're flagged up for PvP, you're fighting back, or you're the Node War or whatever. Any death penalty like that should be minuscule. Like if my armor is fully repaired at 100% and I die during a Node War, I don't want my armor to drop past 99% because I'm actively participating in an objective. I'm actively participating in PvP, et cetera, et cetera. I should not get a huge gear degradation and, have to go grind off for 10 minutes of XP debt. It shouldn't be that penalizing. Now, should it be penalizing for the others, that the non-purples, the corrupted? Oh yeah, I want corrupted death penalties to be big. Should it be penalizing for the green, the people that just choose to not fight back and like, hey, you can kill me, I'm just gonna keep you can keep trying to kill me, I'm gonna keep picking these flowers? Yeah,
Absolutely.
but purple, I'm with you. I don't want no huge death penalties, and I want people to feel encouraged to participate in the objectives and everything like that. And if you got all these crazy death penalties for the most simplest of tasks and the common of deaths, then yeah, I'm with you. If they don't balance it right, it could be an issue. Ragnarok says there should be a scaling decrease of stats to deaths, otherwise the battles will never end. Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. And we mentioned that like how there's gonna be a point if you keep wiping in a dungeon. Let's say you get to that last boss, you fight your way through everybody, you get to that last boss, you guys keep wiping, you're gonna get punished you're going to get punished for wiping on that boss to the point where you're actually going to keep doing worse against the boss. Does that make sense to
Yep.
everybody?
Yep.
If you keep failing at the boss, you're going to fail. It's going to be even more difficult. If you find a boss difficult, it's only going to get more difficult after you guys wipe. And it's a fun concept. Steven had a good quote about it. I can't think of it right now, but what he said was pretty I thought was pretty cool, and I like the logic. I really do.
Yep. I
It
do
makes
too.
that reward, and when you finally do accomplish it, feel better. It's a weird concept, and I know it doesn't sound fun, right? It doesn't sound fun to a lot of you, but I talked about this on the ESO podcast the other day, where it's just like the reason that ESO overland content isn't enriching and satisfying to me, and the reason I don't feel the need to be social on ESO, because I don't need to be social. The content I don't need to for overland content, I don't need to call someone for help with something. I don't need help killing something. Like, the content's not hard, and thus it's just like I don't feel good even when I do kill that world boss that I soloed. I don't feel like a badass. I don't think my build is top tier and amazing. It's just the content's not challenging enough. Thus, my sense of satisfaction isn't up there. You beat Els. I bet you will never forget that day you finally beat Margaret in Elden Ring,
Oh yeah.
or certain bosses. Like, it sticks
Yep.
with you.
Yep.
It sticks with you. I can't think of my first anything on ESO as far as like overland bosses.
My first Maelstrom Arena run took me 9.5 hours to beat straight. You couldn't save it.
Yeah.
I had a Saturday.
that.
You couldn't save it. Imagine if there was experience loss or gear degradation to that degree in that game. I wouldn't have made it. And that's a good thing. Like, it's a good thing that by design. I actually really like the idea of gear degradation. I think it's great. And I'm, when it comes to PvP, like at ESO, if I saw a 12-man that I think I could kill, there were times where I would spend like an hour trying to fight the same group because they were bagging me. And I was like, I just got to kill this one person first. I got to kill this one person first. And I got it. And I would die and I would respawn and I would come back. Die, respawn, come back. And I'm just that type of player. It eliminates those types of players from being that much of a pain in the ass, which I think is a good thing overall for the game. So.
Truing. Gutscore says, does that mean, as far as the raid boss, being difficult the more you wipe on it, he says, does that mean though? AC with the $5 dono. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Gutscore says, does that mean your first attempt is your only best opportunity to take it down? Or can you have like 3 tries before it gets harder? That really just all depends. Well, to answer it, yes, your first couple of tries are going to be your best chances. So it's good to have someone that's done it before or something like that. We don't know if repair kits are going to be a thing or how impactful these penalizing stuff is going to be, but it does go without saying that it depends on how Intrepid does the death penalty scaling.
Yeah.
How hardcore they go into that. Because, yeah, it's going to suck, man. Imagine you go through all these hard bosses. You get to that boss at the end that you want for that drop, and you have wiped too many times on the way to that boss, or you wiped on that boss like you're 10 times in, and you guys just aren't doing good. And, let's not forget, I'm sorry to go paint this picture for you guys, but let's say you wiped on this boss 10 times and that's only made it harder for you to try to attempt this boss, even though you're kind of learning the mechanics now, right? You kind of got your rotations. The healer kind of know what they're doing now. It's a PvX game. So what if you're 10 deaths in, you got hella death penalties, so you're just not as effective. You got negative XP going on, whatever. And then another group arrives there, Another group arrives there, and maybe they want you out of the area, and they force some PvP action. What are you going to do? You're going to have to fight back, because guess what? If you don't fight back, you actually take more of a death penalty, right? So now you're just annoyed, and I'm not going full Care Bear here. I'm just trying to, empathize, I guess, with the Care Bears and let you guys know the difficulties. And it's not a Care Bear thing. This is just something that we're going to have to worry about in the open world, right? Now a group has entered said dungeon, and they're going to PvP you. And if you lose to them, well, I guess if you lose to them, it's not going to be as much of a death penalty as when you lost to the boss. But let's say they kill you and now you're out of that area. You got to respawn far away. You guys got to really break down this game, really theory craft what a core gameplay loop looks like in a true PvX game and how you're gonna get frustrated. That picture, that scenario I just painted, yes, it's a vicious cycle. It's something you gotta be mentally prepared for. You don't like, because I feel like these situations are gonna happen, and then you're gonna get really toxic people. People are gonna report you. They're gonna take it personal. They're gonna dox you. They're gonna, like, call you bad words. They're gonna report you. They're gonna tell the whole server Discord on you, and that's just the game loop. That's the madness that Steven is literally constructing. Like, this is the system you subjected yourself to when you signed up for this game, and people who talk like, "Oh, I'm all for PvP. PvP this, I don't mind. PvX, I'm with all of it." And then comes the day where you gotta grind something. You need to
Yeah.
farm that special bow that you've been wanting out of that dungeon. You got your PvE skills slotted or whatever. You're failing on this boss, and then you get attacked. Your 10-man group gets attacked by this 30-man Zerg that just bum rushed the dungeon and said, "Yeah, out." Just
Yeah.
food for thought.
Yeah, things in this game are going to be so rewarding when you complete them for the first time. It's going to feel like the first people to complete the first dungeon, the first stage of Carfin, like all these different things. It's going to be feel so good. Like I was the first. I was one.
Yeah.
I'm one of the few that can do this. I'm some of the people that can do this. It's what I'm looking forward to, and it's going to be slightly frustrating at the time. You know, there will be times where it just doesn't go well, and you're going to be a little annoyed, but you know the wins make up for the losses in my opinion. And so yeah, it's what I'm looking forward to. And it was fun for me when I was playing Baldur's Gate, and like you would stumble across a boss because there's nothing laid out. It's not like, you know, it's not like Elden Ring where you see a room, right, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
but I'm going into a room. What's going to happen here, right? Like you know what's going to happen in that room. You're going to get your shit pushed in for 3 hours. In Baldur's Gate, it was a little bit different, and so I would encounter different things, and I would die, and I'd be like, "Holy crap! I was not ready for that," and I had to like
Yeah.
think through how I was going to go through this interaction. Like, okay, how am I going to fight these guys? What am I going to do? And I think a lot of that planning in advance is going to be a big part of this game.
Indeed. Um, so Flyrock says people will probably min max the hell out of the game before launch. I think with the existence of Alpha 2, Beta 1, Beta 2, whatever. Yeah, I think people will find things that are optimal. I predict that even before launch happens, people that have played the game, watched the game, whatever, already are going to know the most efficient way to grind, level, and stuff like that. It's just something that you really can't avoid, honestly.
I think I think there's going to be people that will have an advantage, but the more people you get that get their hands on the game, the more chance you have to find whatever's best, if that makes sense. So that, like,
Yeah.
if they flesh out their weapon trees the way we think that they're going to, if they flesh out their archetypes, their augments, all these sorts of things, there's so many different variables. It's going to be very, very tough to test everything. It's going to be very tough to test and figure out everything. So we'll have to see as we get there. I will tell you guys right now, when Nyce and I are testing in Alpha 2 and we're testing in the Beta 1 and Beta 2, we'll be providing our opinion based off of what we test. And if it's
Yeah.
as vast as what we think, like if you're watching these two channels, you'll have a good idea for what we think the meta will be when the game goes live, is what I'm trying to say. But that doesn't mean that we're going to have the best in slot. Like that very well could be very hard to find for like the first 6 months of the game.
Mm-hmm. I think a cool thing is that this is an open beta. It's not closed. So I don't think we have to worry about the min max being gatekept per se. I think it's different in games where not everyone gets to play it early. And I mean, that's going to be the case with Alpha 2. Not everyone's going to have access to it. Maybe everyone doesn't have access to Beta 2 and they're just going to play at launch, pay that $15 subscription and play for the first time.
Yep.
One thing that's not gatekept, or one thing that's free to everybody, is knowledge. Knowledge
Exactly.
and the power of research, aka Google. You have the knowledge, the means to search this stuff, to watch videos, to learn things, to go to the wiki. Nothing's holding you back from that. Even if you are someone that didn't get an Alpha 2 key, not playing Ashes of Creation, don't get to play Ashes of Creation before launch. Um, do understand that these tools are made available to you, and just as the development is open, I mean, so will our streams be. Is you're gonna be able to see this stuff. So
Yeah.
um, yeah,
I want real quick, Nice. I got two things. Garsamilli talking about what we were just saying. He goes, as someone who was mainly a raider in the past, the death penalties on progression wipes is concerning. Even more so when I plan on maining tank, where I will be the first to drop.
ooh,
It's a good point. I thought that was pretty funny.
yes,
I don't know if he asked you this, but he did ask me this. So a couple weeks ago, I talked to Vladis on his 1v1 podcast, and the question he asked me, Nice, was if you found a build in Ashes and it was really strong, would you keep it for yourself or would you share it?
oh, I'd share it.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I
I'd
share it. And I did that in ESO for years before I realized that they don't fix stuff right away. So then at that point, when I did find something broken, I would share it with the devs. And then I would go, hey, this needs to get fixed right here. This is ridiculous. But yeah, we're open books for knowledge, guys. Like my stance on combat in any game is if I've been playing something for 10 hours, 20 hours, 100 hours, and I come up with a build, if you can play the build that I've been working on for hundreds of hours better than me, more power to you. Like good for you. But I'm not seeing it happening. Like there's having a build and there's being able to play it at a high level. And so you can give them the tools, but it doesn't mean that they're going to use them as well as you do. And so I'm always going to be sharing tools when I see them. And I'm sure Nyce does the exact same thing.
Yeah, and I don't even think that's because like, oh, for content. Oh, because I'm a content creator. I just like, like, hey.
Yeah.
So, and here's my thing. Like, if you stream, especially just from first a content creator standpoint, if you stream, people are constantly asking, what are you running? Why are you using this skill and not this one? I'd rather just have it out there.
Yep.
I'd rather just have it out there just to avoid those questions being too often. And I think if you find something strong, why not help the community and provide them with a template?
Exactly.
Like, I don't know. That just makes sense to me. Like, why wouldn't you want? I mean, yes, your enemies will get a hold of it, right? But it's like, I don't want to feel like I'm keeping something from other people, from people that want to keep things too much to themselves. Something's too close to the chest is like, I think it's usually involving like exploits. There's some people like they'll find out this helmet is providing 10% more crit chance than it should or something like that, and I'm like, I don't understand that mindset. Like, just report it, get it fixed. But yeah. Anyways, I just feel like, why not help each other? Because guess what? And I'll close with this. If I start playing cleric, right, and I'm a tank main, I got the best tank build on the server, blah blah blah. Everyone knows me. Everyone hits me up the tank, or I got guides on YouTube, whatever. Or let's say I don't have the guides, but I'm like the best tank on the server. I want to try cleric one day. I try this dungeon. I'm trying to heal this dungeon that I've tanked probably 30 times, right? This is my dungeon. I know all the mechanics. I've done it so many times. If I'm on my cleric and there's a tank there, I know what they should be doing. I'll try to guide them, but what if they just can't succeed? What if their gear is horrible? Instead of stacking constitution, they've been, as a tank, stacking crit chance. They have no evasion bonuses. They have no max health pieces. They're in cloth armor. And we just can't succeed because the tank is the first person to die, and they're dying so often. And yeah, I'm a cleric. I'm trying to learn cleric. I feel like I'm a decent healer, but I can't keep this guy alive because he's getting one shot. I can't heal him through a one shot. Now, if I would have just shared my knowledge, if he would have had a guide, or if I would have just gave him some advice on how to tank that better, I would have an easier time when I switch to my cleric. And thus you have less of a trash community when the knowledge is spread.
The other thing too, to piggyback off that, Nyce, is because this game is rock, paper, scissors, where things will be able to be hard countered a little bit easier in this game, in theory. If I share ridiculous one-shot OP rogue build, and that's literally what the YouTube title is, because I want all the clicks. Like if I share something like that, well, there's going to be rogue defensive abilities. There's going to be counters. So if people are like, hey, this build's really strong, a YouTuber just posted it, we might want to put some rogue defensive capabilities, some revealing flares, some stuff that will pull rogues out of stealth, because we're going to probably see a few more of them now, because there's this really,
Yep.
there's this really strong build out there. So we're just going to make sure that we're going to take care of this, and we will, make sure that they don't have a fun day if they try to attack us. There's going to be hard counters like that in this game. And yeah, I think those strong builds are only as strong as, the community allows them to be.
Agreed. So I think the last one that I think a lot of us are wanting to see is the character creator. We don't have to spend too much on this one. Probably ready to close it out here soon.
I would have gone in a different direction, but I'm okay with that.
And well, we'll get two more. The character creator one was from chat. Actually, I think I agree with the character creator one. This is something that I'm sure we're gonna get, so it's not really on my list. I know we're gonna get it. They've said this actually even recently that we're gonna get our hands on the Alpha 2 character creator before Alpha 2 actually launches. I expect PI to get instead of their templates that they've been getting, to get an in-depth character creator. My theory, I don't have nothing supporting this, but my theory is that they're waiting for more of the races to be for surely ready. I think one person
Yeah.
was on a dwarf during the Node War. I'm not positive, but I think I saw Z was on one. But my guess is that they're obviously just working through bugs, make sure it's really polished, and then that maybe they're just fine-tuning some of the races at a base before they let the community start messing with that race and messing with sliders and stuff. Livio says Livio says, sorry, Nyce. Loreforge got TGF's raid, but I am here. Oh no, it's fine. I was actually about to raid Loreforge myself, so that'll be fun. We'll do that after we close the show out. I want to know what else's last thing to see that remains to be seen from Ashes of Creation.
Yep. So guys, it has to be seen before Alpha 2, or else I'm going to have a problem. And that is Rogue. Steven, I'm sorry, you're wrong. You were wrong. Rogue has to be in there. I can't believe that you would, spit in our faces like this and deny us the Rogue, the sneaky, stealthy, damagey boy. No, I sorry, I had to mess around, but no, in all seriousness, I am really looking forward to seeing the Rogue. But as far as before Alpha 2 goes, like I think we covered him pretty well. I do want to see augments. I do want to see Guild Wars, because I want to see where the difference is. But I'm just ready to get Alpha 2 like rolling. Like, we're at the last month of quarter 2, Nyce. So
yeah.
So I will ask you this: since we're at the last month of quarter 2, what % chance do you think it is that we get an announcement for the date for Alpha 2, since July 1st is quarter 3?
Ooh. Yeah, they had to do it in July. I mean, have is a strong word, but it only makes sense.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
You're right. I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about the month announcement. I mean, they don't have to do a day, but yeah, the month. So let's think about that. Yeah. So we have what? July, August, September. So we're working with 3 months. If you you wouldn't announce the month before, right? So you know what? Else confirmed it. Yeah, we're getting the month reveal next month. And you know what? This kind of lines up with Intrepid's recent history. On a serious note, they have a boring, and I'm just gonna use that loosely. They have a boring stream subject with tech next month, right?
Oh yeah.
You see where I'm going with
Yeah.
this? Thanks for the follow. Like, tech stream, they know people are gonna be, all super hype, sharing the stream around, and the copium isn't gonna be super filled. I think we get the Alpha 2 month and the the June tech stream. Yeah.
It makes sense, doesn't it? When you think about it, it's like,
June stream, July stream.
We're probably not going to get Alpha 2 in July. Probably not. But they have to announce, like, they could announce the month in June. They could announce the exact date in June. It would make sense to, because once we get into July, people are like, hey, we're in quarter 3. Like, when's the date? When's the date? When's the date? And so if they're doing the end of July for their July stream, you've already gone through a third of quarter 3. It makes sense to do it now. Just saying.
Yeah. I'm all for it, because usually so when they gave us the quarter 3 announcement, It was I mean, the event stream wasn't all that. It was short. It was just like, all right, you come over here and the event happened. It was not innovative. It
Yeah.
wasn't nothing different that we haven't really seen. And it was like, all right, well, that was that. Quarter 3, 2024. It was big. It was good.
Yep.
So I think the tech stream is gonna be like that, and that because you know how they try not to do certain things because they'll distract from the feedback that they want. It's like why they didn't show PvP during the first Caravan
Yes.
showcase. It's why they space certain things out. The tech stream, I imagine they're not gonna have. I mean, they're gonna have a forum thread for feedback or whatever, but I imagine they're not gonna gain much feedback or seek out but so much feedback to their tech stream, right? So the something needs to carry that. So maybe I could be wrong. It could be a banger of a tech stream. Who knows? Maybe the dwarf rogue is showing the tech in the damn Sand Squall Desert for all we. Yeah, maybe. But yeah, Magisto says, my prediction, June live stream. Steven will tell us to stay tuned for a special announcement next month, which is July live stream, where Steven gives us the official date, which will be in mid-September. Mid-September is a very good guess. That's where I have it. Mid or late, well, mid-September. 15th through the 20th is my guess.
Okay.
6 weeks heads up. Better question is how long until the panic sets in? I mean, if we make it through all of July without knowing the month that Alpha 2 is in, and literally only August and September remains in quarter 3, that's probably panic time, huh?
I think okay, I'm willing to bet that if we do not get an announcement in June for when the date is, like, or even it doesn't have to be the exact date. They could just say the month, right? And just say, hey, like later on we'll update the day. If we don't get that, and they push it down and like we go through all of July, because literally all of July we're not gonna have anything. It'll be like the last week of the month before we have the next live stream. If that happens, I guarantee you the forums and Discord will lose their shit. Like, Alpha 2's getting delayed.
Campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be willing to bet that happens. So
yeah, you're right. It's like once again, chat, we're not saying they had to, but it's like
no.
Here's our predictions and here's what would make sense from a marketing standpoint. Medusa says, here's a question for you guys and a concern of mine. Should Steven announce the exact date before Alpha 1 can do before Alpha 1 can do their spot testing?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's fine. Here's our date, and then the Alpha 1 testers will get in before then. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no. I see where you're going with this, because we need to make sure the networking is fine and can handle all those people. I see what you're saying.
Sure.
Because that's the one thing, like Levio here says, I think they should show off how they will handle 100, 200K testers with their network stability updates. That's a good question. That's a good shout, chat. I didn't look at it that way. Yeah, I didn't look at it that way. The Alpha 1 spot testing is what will actually determine the announcement date. So maybe throughout this next month or two, especially with this tech stream show coming up, maybe we'll start seeing Alpha 1 spot testing coming here and around, I don't know, maybe July. I doubt they do it in June, but it's a possibility. Maybe they just do a tech stream so they got time to focus on spot testing, do some more PI testing and whatnot. But either way, chat, all these things that we're talking about is good, because that means we're finally at the end of that road. You guys just got to hold on just a little bit longer. Alpha 2 is around the corner. I'm excited. The wait is almost here. I remember when I bought my Alpha 2 key, I was so convinced that Alpha 2 was a couple of months out. And I sound insane. I sound insane today. Looking at me, I was like, oh, yeah. I think I bought mine.
2022.
What? Yeah, we got ours. Was it October 2022?
Yeah, September, October.
Might have been October or September. Yeah, it was September, October. And we was like, judging from this live stream, I'm betting that it could be like February of 23, June at the latest. That was the conversation going around for everybody. And then I don't remember what stream it was. Do you remember where one stream, like, it hit everybody? It was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot which stream it was.
It was the December live stream.
Oh,
because everybody thought that there was going to be an announcement, and they did like a holiday video. Yeah,
That
everything
might have
came
been it.
crashing down at that point.
And then we saw the tank stream, and everybody was like, "Oh man, we're pretty." Oh yeah, we did the double tank stream. That's what it was. We did the double tank stream. And like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead and yeah,
Let's
what's
pack
that
this up
refund
another 8
policy?
months.
No, I'm playing. Oh man, thank you guys so much for the follows. Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys for all the follows, subs, everything like that. Subscribing on YouTube, everything. I think it is time for us to call it here. This has been a fun conversation. If you guys did come in late, this was a good topic of conversation.
Yeah.
What remains to be seen for Ashes of Creation? And I think you guys brought up a lot of good things, a lot of good points. The archetype one, like El said with the rogue, is definitely super important. That's probably, I mean, honestly, that's probably what I want to see the most, right? I said Guild Wars, but as far as the most for me, I
I'm
think
waiting for the bit.
it was augments. It was augments.
I'm waiting
It's
for the
definitely
bit here.
augments for me.
I saw your thumbnail trolling the rogues. Nice. I know you're not looking forward to rogue the most, okay? Like we don't have to do this.
Let Intrepid take their time. Oh man.
Well, yeah. Do you want to
All
call
right.
it here?
Yes, let's everyone that's here on Twitch, we are gonna raid over to Loreforge. Let's get some people over there. They got 56 in chat. I think the Golden Feather Tavern has already raided them. Let's go raid over to Loreforge and bring the hype. You guys know Sunny, Cash, and Jibs. They always have a good show. So yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. Yes, yeah, we're coming for the lore. A floor in the tower. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you everybody for all the follows. Thank you for all the subs, guys. Really appreciate everything. Like you got, like Nyce says it a million times. I'm going to take his bit here because he's lying about Rogue. But if it wasn't for you guys, like we wouldn't be able to have these fun conversations. And we're 49 episodes in. We're closing in on a year, guys.
49.
Like we're so close to having a year's worth of Voices of Verra content, which is really freaking cool. It's a big milestone. So, yeah. That's all I got. But thank you
Yes.
for everything.
The big episode 49.
yeah.
Episode 50 is coming. Episode 50. That's something. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much, AC. Thank you so much, everybody. We couldn't do this without you, the Voices of Verra. Let's start the raid. It should be raiding you guys over here in the next 10 seconds or so, I think.
Yeah, you got it. Yep.
Appreciate you guys. Peace. There we go. All right, you guys. Bye. All right, that should have went through.